Steel Vengeance is often touted as being one of, if not the greatest roller coasters in the entire world. This is for good reason too. It was made by Rocky Mountain Construction during their prime, it was their first hypercoaster, and by far their most ambitious project. This project ended up being a massive success and gave us this amazing ride with the most airtime in the world. Most people who have ridden this ride have ranked it as their #1 favorite coaster at some point in their life. But today, I'm going to explain to you that although this is an amazing ride, it is by no means the best roller coaster by Rocky Mountain Construction. Out of all the roller coasters by RMC, there are only a few that give competition to Steel Vengeance. I would say that Iron Gwazi, Hakuge, Zadra, and Air Force One can stand against this ride. Of these, I have been on Iron Gwazi and Air Force One, and we'll compare these to Steel Vengeance throughout this video. First, let's start off with what Steel Vengeance does right. Its first half is full of massive elements, including the best 2 elements on the ride, the top hat and the massive outer bank. After this, there are 2 really cool inversions, one moving up into the structure, almost acting as a reverse death roll, and another partial stall moving downwards. Both of these inversions are unique experiences and highlights of the ride. After this, you rise up into an airtime hill and then into the mid-course, and this takes us into the second half. This is where the ride really starts to fall apart for me. Starting with a weak drop off the mid-course, from here, the ride dives down into the structure of the ride, and while this does give for a cool visual of diving through the structure, it leads for a lack of creativity of elements. From here on out, you're doing one of 3 things: a small airtime hill, bank turn, or a 0G roll. And none of these moments are really that strong. It gets super repetitive very quickly, and none of the moments are strong enough to stand their own as a standout element of the ride. The layout feels very uninspired. The inversions feel forceless, and like they are just there just for the sake of being there. And by the end of the ride, the airtime is basically non-existent. It's just weak pushes forward instead of actual ejector airtime lifting you out of your seat. The finale of the ride is especially guilty of this. And since it's the finale of the ride, you walk away from the ride with that weak airtime in your head, and it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Usually halfway through the second half of the ride, I just want it to be over. It no longer feels like an experience, but like a chore. Sometimes less is more, and this applies to roller coasters as well. I think the ride would be much better if it ended a little bit after the mid-course. I think it would have been better if it used its remaining speed to give us 3 or 4 killer elements before going into the brake run, as opposed to giving us 15 weak elements. Now let's compare this to the other 2 rides, starting with Iron Gwazi. Iron Gwazi is basically the first half of Steel Vengeance, but for the entire ride. It is relentless throughout the whole ride, and when you hit the brakes, you slam into them. Whereas on Steel Vengeance, you can feel yourself losing speed by the end, and you come softly into those brakes. Iron Gwazi also isn't bogged down by weak airtime moments and inversions. Every inversion is spectacular, especially with the death roll, which is a major highlight of the ride. And all the airtime moments are extremely strong and are major highlights. The outer bank, wave turn, and the drop before the brakes are some of my favorite moments out of any coaster. This is why Iron Gwazi is the best RMC in my opinion. Now, if you have made it this far into the video, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel, because there's going to be a lot more coaster content coming to this channel soon. Now let's compare Steel Vengeance to another ride, Air Force One. Despite this ride not being as tall or as fast, it still manages to provide a much more unique experience. Nearly every element is a standout moment. Air Force has the first of its kind Raven Trust Dive, and a speed hill that actually gives great ejector airtime, unlike the speed hill on Steel Vengeance. There are also 3 inversions, including a 0G stall and 2 Heartline rolls. The stall is a nice floaty moment, and both rolls give insane whip, especially with the arcade roll. These rolls actually pull great forces, and it doesn't feel like you're just going through the motions of the roll like it does on Steel Vengeance. Lastly, the airtime. Like Iron Gwazi, every airtime moment on this ride is a hit, especially with the outer bank and the double up. But where the comparison really becomes clear is in the finale. Like Steel Vengeance, Air Force has 6 back-to-back airtime hills to end out the ride. Unlike Steel Vengeance, however, these are actually forceful, and each hill gives insane ejector pops. This finale completely destroys Steel Vengeance's finale. This is why I think Air Force One is definitely a better RMC than Steel Vengeance. Please don't mistake this video for me disliking Steel Vengeance, because I still love this ride. I just think it might be the Millennium Force effect, where its popularity leads to everyone wearing some rose-tinted glasses and not seeing the flaws that the ride clearly has. And again, I want to reiterate, I love this ride. In fact, It's my number 4 favorite roller coaster. I just think people need to acknowledge that the ride has flaws, and it isn't the perfect coaster that's often touted as. If you enjoyed this video, or if this video made you mad, tell me all about it in the comments, and have a great day.